In today's video, we're going to talk about character design. This video is a part of a series on how to write your idea from conception to first draft, and I'll link the previous lesson above me. Even if you're not following my step-by-step guide, writers need to understand character design so they can write characters that are compelling and interesting, not just paper cutouts that we often see in your average Hollywood blockbuster. Now, Jeff from Fast Screenplay, which is the program that I learned a lot from and I really respect his views, says this about character design. Characters in stories are not real people. But because of our intuitive understanding of the human nature, characters must be endowed with traits, actions, and motivations that feel authentic, or your audience can't suspend their disbelief. Now, one important note about the character design we're going to be looking at today is there's a lot of different ways to do this. This is just one way. And you can also add more character techniques as you begin to learn them and add them to this particular process. So this is just a very simple, short way to do that. So as we begin to dive into this, just so that you know that. Now, this might seem like a controversial statement at first, but characters exist to serve your story and not the other way around. For a lot of screenwriters, we fall in love with our characters so much that we forget that a character unto themselves can be quite boring without a context or a story to show off the interesting things about them. And this is why it's important to figure out what function each of the characters within your script has, as well as what function in my script needs that particular type of character. Now, to do this, let us start with some common character archetypes. Note, I'm not saying your character has to follow these archetypes. This is just one of the tools we can use to help us figure out what the function for our character is. Now, two other things to keep in mind is that you can have multiple characters fulfilling an archetype, and a character can serve different archetypes at different parts in your script. Now, the first archetype we're going to talk about today is the mentor. This is the person who teaches the hero or main character or provides information for them or gives them a useful object for them to use along their journey. And this person that I normally think of right away when I think of mentor, I think of Dumbledore for Harry Potter. You can also think of Obi-Wan Kenobi or Yoda for Luke Skywalker. Traditionally, so you can see it's traditionally somebody who's an older or wiser person, but there are some cases where a younger person can act as a mentor. The next archetype is the threshold guardian. These people stop the hero from progressing to a new place on their journey. They make the hero jump through a bunch of hoops or prove themselves before they can progress. An interesting example of a threshold guardians would be Han Solo in the original Star Wars movie, where Luke has to sell his speeder in order to get passage for the Millennium Falcon. Our next archetype is the herald. The herald announces changes or issues challenges. Remember, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope," is an example of a herald. You can also see that later on when Obi-Wan talks to Luke and says to Luke, "You must learn the ways of the Force if you were to come with me to Alderaan." Again, announcing a change or issuing a challenge for the main character. The next archetype is the shapeshifter. Now, this is a wonderful character. He or she changes sides constantly, so you never know for sure whose side that they're on. So you have Boromir from the Lord of the Rings series, or Gollum, both of them from the Lord of the Rings series, as interesting people that sort of flip back and forth between what side they are on. The next archetype is the shadow. Now, the shadow is not always bad. The character wearing the mask of the shadow may represent the hero's deepest, darkest desires and his greatest fears or his phobias. The hero's enemies and villains often wear the shadow's mask, but it doesn't have to be the case. This physical form is determined to destroy the hero and his cause. So you could look at this from the perspective of Darth Vader as the shadow from Star Wars. I think one of Luke's deepest fears is being turned to the dark side and of not being able to control the Force and to use the Force as wisely as he wants. And Darth Vader is that counterexample, showing what happens when someone does turn to the dark side of the Force. The next archetype is the trickster. This character is the comic relief in the story. Merry and Pippin from the Lord of the Rings. Ron from Harry Potter, I would think, would work, or Dobby as well sometimes. And of course, C-3PO and R2-D2. Sometimes the hero himself plays the trickster, such as like in Indiana Jones, or sometimes in James Bond too. And finally, the last archetype is the ally. And these are people who help the hero, hence ally. And they could be an ally that's intentional, or they could also be a hero that's unintentional as well too. So they can mean to help, and then sometimes they just are sort of unintended helpers. Now note, you can also use this list to help you fill in the script in areas that you think you need some help. You're thinking maybe, hey, I have this character who's trying to learn something new, and oh, I should probably have create a mentor type figure for them to help with that learning type process. Again, I can't stress this enough. Your characters in your script are there for a reason and not by random chance. Characters fulfill a purpose. So we have an archetype for our characters. Let's take a look at how we can breathe some life into them so that the audience sees them as three-dimensional people and not just as simple plot devices. And this goes for all of our characters, not just the main heroes, but also the secondary heroes as well. So here's some things to think in mind as you think about creating a three-dimensional character. The first one is, what are their traits? In one of the previous videos, which I'll link here, we talked about giving traits to your main character. What if you give traits to your main antagonist, or you gave your traits to like the mentor character? Does it have to be all three traits that we did with the hero? It could be more, it could be less. And how would these traits impact your story differently? And maybe look at the different traits for each of those characters and see how those different traits impact that character interaction and story differently. The next one, what about physical characteristics? What if your character was a different ethnicity? What if they were older? What if they were younger? What if they were taller? What if they were shorter? What about them, about their physical characteristics? Could you try differently and see how that looks with a different lens? Try that with all the different characters that you have. Now, what about their past? Where did they come from? What experiences have they grown up in their life? Were they poor? Were they wealthy? Did they come from a traumatic situation? Were they in a war? What about their past? And again, that helps give you a better insight into this particular character. Now, you don't always have to write all this out so that everybody needs to see it on screen, but you need to know, what is their past about? So what is their perspective? Are they liberal? Are they conservative? Do they like money? Do they like power? Are they all about helping other people? How do they feel about the opposite gender? What's their sense of humor like? Do they have a sense of humor? What are those perspectives that they have? And again, think about your characters with different perspectives too. What does your character look like in the story if they have a conservative viewpoint versus a liberal viewpoint, or something along those lines? And finally, give them a name. Now, make the name authentic for the time period and age of the character. Also, make that name mean something in the context of your screenplay. Bruce Almighty, one of the things I remember about that was that the girlfriend for Bruce her name was Grace, which if you're thinking about God, and at least within the Christian religion, Grace has a connotation with God. And so that was an interesting play on the name of that character within the screenplay. And finally, when you're thinking of names, give every character's name, make sure it starts with a different letter. The reason for this is because audience are less likely to be confused by this, and screenwriting software will automatically type the whole name when you list the first letter. So again, make sure that each character has a different letter for their first name. So just like I said, because I've read a couple screenplays where there's like a Derek and a Doug. And sometimes it got hard for me to follow. Was I talking about Derek or was I talking about Doug? And not that the characters were hard, but it was just seeing that name over and over again with the two Ds that made it hard. So as you begin to do this with your characters, suddenly I think the plot and the story will come more into focus. Maybe something that has been missing in your screenplay will finally click, or maybe a decision your character is going to will make better sense now based on some of these things that we just talking about how bringing your character to life is. So your writing exercise today is all about character design. I want you to go through your screenplay and figure out the archetypes for the characters that you have, and maybe the characters that you need. Look and see what archetypes you might be missing that will reinforce your story. Next, I want you to take the major and minor characters and give them life by asking those questions we just got done asking. What are the physical characteristics? What is their name? What kind of story do they have? Now, if you have any aha moments, put them in the comment section below. If you've learned anything really cool about your characters, leave that in the comment section below. So hi, if we're meeting for the first time, my fellow screenwriting enthusiasts, my name is Paul from Small Town Movie Critic. If you're new to the channel, we're all about helping you write that kick-ass screenplay by giving you tips, tools, inspiration, and product reviews. If you feel this is the type of content that will be good for helping with your screenwriting endeavors, feel free to hit the subscribe button below. If you like the content, feel free to check out some more of my content, which is really good about helping you go deeper into your screenwriting. Now, as we do each and every week, I'd like to welcome all of our new subscribers. Thank you all for walking with me through your collective screenwriting journeys. I wish you all luck in your future writing and filmmaking endeavors. Now, my hope for you this week is that your writing goes well, or your rewriting goes well. I hope you're able to carve out time so you can work on that next kick-ass screenplay, because only you can make that next blockbuster that will help other people fall in love with storytelling, just like we do. Now, until the next video, keep writing and have a blessed day.